When the system collapses and infrastructure breaks piece by piece, the only people still living comfortably will be the ones who already have the tools to fix what everyone else has to throw away. Not the flashy gear, not the tactical toys, the 10 tools that quietly keep your power running, your water flowing, your heat working, and your equipment alive when the supply chain is dead. Hit subscribe, because by the time everyone else realizes convenience culture doesn't survive a long emergency, the shelves will be empty, the parts will be gone, and you'll be stuck waiting while the people who prepared are rebuilding everything with what they already own. These 10 tools work anywhere, house, apartment, or off-grid. They diagnose, repair, stabilize, and keep systems running long after replacement parts disappear. Number 10. The digital multimeter, the truth teller in a world where systems fail quietly before they fail completely. When the grid becomes unreliable and replacement parts stop flowing into North America, this tool tells you what still works and what died in the night. A multimeter tests every system keeping your household running: batteries, solar panels, generators, inverters, vehicle wiring, well pumps, heating systems, thermostats, and every fuse in between. Set it to continuity mode. Touch the leads to both ends of a fuse, heating element, or switch. If it beeps, the part is alive. If it stays silent, that's your failure point. No guessing, no tearing apart the entire system. One reading, one answer. A multimeter can tell you battery health, not just charge level, but whether it has internal resistance or cell failure. In a world where new batteries come from overseas factories that may not be operating, knowing which batteries can be revived extends your power supply by months. Another use almost nobody knows. Locate a broken wire inside a wall without opening it. Test continuity from one end, then halfway along the line. When the reading drops, you've found the break. Why it's on the list. When the grid falters and imported electronics stop appearing, the multimeter becomes the only reliable way to keep your remaining systems alive. It turns you from a guesser into a diagnostician. Number 9. The ratcheting wire crimper kit. The tool that restores connection when everything around you begins to come apart. Electrical systems rarely fail all at once. They fail at the joints, loose terminals, corroded connections, frayed ends. When 85% of wiring components come from overseas factories that stop shipping, every connection you repair becomes a replacement you don't need. A ratcheting crimper creates factory-grade compression on terminals and heat shrink connectors. Strip your wire cleanly, insert it into a heat shrink connector, crimp until the ratchet releases, then heat the tubing. You've created a waterproof, vibration-proof joint, good for vehicles, generators, solar arrays, and emergency lighting. This tool lets you repurpose wiring from broken appliances, abandoned electronics, and junked vehicles. You can build extension cords from salvage, patch solar cables, rebuild generator harnesses when mice chew through them. Why it's on the list? Every modern system depends on wires. When you can't buy new appliances, you maintain the ones you have. A ratcheting crimper gives you the ability to rebuild an electrical world from whatever scraps you can find. Number 8. The soldering station. The tool that resurrects dead electronics long after replacements disappear. When the supply chain slows, cheap electronics vanish first. Chargers, radios, inverters, battery banks, LED lighting, appliance control boards. These fail not because components die, but because connections fail, cold joints, broken solder pads, cracked traces. Here's the technique. Add flux to the joint, not the solder. Heat the component lead and pad together, then touch solder to the joint. If it flows into a smooth, shiny pool, you've made a proper joint that will last. Modern appliances fail because one resistor cracked, one capacitor bulged, one diode lifted. A soldering station lets you replace those pennies worth components instead of losing a $300 appliance. Creative use. You can repair broken eyeglasses, metal zipper pulls, small tools, even cookware handles by tinning and soldering metal surfaces together. Why it's on the list. A soldering station is the difference between a household that slowly goes dark as electronics die and one that keeps its radios, solar, lights and tools functioning year after year. Number 7, the tap and die plus thread repair kit. The tool that brings metal back from the dead when replacement parts no longer exist. When a bolt strips out of an engine block or generator housing, you can't just buy a new one when supply chain's slow. A tap and die set lets you cut new threads into old metal and restore structural strength of equipment that would otherwise become scrap. Coat your tap with cutting oil and back it into the damaged hole slowly. Half turn forward, quarter turn back. That clears metal chips and prevents binding. Once the tap bottoms out, you've created new internal threads strong enough to hold a bolt under load. Thread inserts restore stripped holes to better than original strength. A generator's cylinder head bolt pulls loose. A wood stove door hinge snaps free. You drill, tap, and insert a coil. The part isn't just repaired, it's reinforced. Creative use. You can standardize random bolts salvaged from junk equipment, turning mismatched hardware into a uniform thread system for your household. Why it's on the list? When metal fails, and it always does, this kit reverses failures that would end entire systems. It keeps generators running, tools intact, stoves safe, and engines alive. Number 6, the bolt and screw extractor set. The tool that frees you from the smallest failure that can cripple the largest system. In a collapse, the most frustrating breakdowns are tiny ones. A screw head strips while opening an appliance panel. A bolt seizes inside a water pump. Suddenly, the entire device becomes unusable because one piece of metal refused to cooperate. Drill a centered pilot hole into the damaged fastener. Insert the extractor and turn counterclockwise. The extractor bites into the metal as it turns. Because it has reverse threaded spiral, the tighter it bites, the more torque you apply until the broken fastener backs out cleanly. This rescues stoves, generators, bicycles, heaters, pressure canners, solar mounts, and any machine that lives outdoors in weather. Creative use. You can remove broken off valves, snapped pipe nipples, and remnants of threaded fittings without destroying surrounding metal. That means salvaging plumbing components that would otherwise need a machine shop. Why it's on the list? A single stripped screw can be the difference between working heat and a cold house, between a running generator and a useless one. Extractors keep machines accessible long after every repair shop is overwhelmed or out of parts. Number 5, the bearing and gear puller set. The tool that unlocks the hidden parts of every machine you rely on. When systems break, it's the internal components that fail. Bearings inside a generator, the pulley on an alternator, the seized gear in a water pump. These parts don't fall off by hand. They're pressed on, torqued tight, and often rusted in place. Hook the puller arms behind the bearing or gear, tighten the center bolt slowly, and let mechanical leverage do the work. You're drawing it off evenly, preventing damage to the shaft. Most people have no idea how many machines rely on pressed components. Small engines, bicycles, alternators, pumps, washing machines, fans, generators. Everyone lasts 5 to 10 years longer if you can remove and replace their bearings. Because most bearings are standardized sizes, you can salvage replacements from junked machines. Creative use. A gear puller can straighten bent metal brackets when used with a backing plate, compress bushings, even press wheelbarrow wheels back onto axles when retaining hardware fails. Why it's on the list? Once you can remove bearings and gears, you unlock the entire internal structure of mechanical systems. A bearing puller turns complex machines into maintainable ones. Number 4, the bench vise plus heavy-duty clamps. The tool set that turns any surface into a workshop when the world stops offering replacements. In a collapse, a vise becomes the extra pair of hands you no longer have, the stabilizer for repairs you can't afford to mess up, the anchor that makes improvisation possible. Broken handles, bent brackets, cracked tool heads, wobbly hinges, loose fittings. You can't fix any of them properly while holding the parts with your knees. A bench vise gives you leverage, stability, precision. Clamps give you reach and pressure wherever you need it. Suddenly, your entire property becomes a potential repair station. Tighten the vise until the metal begins to sing, that subtle resonance when the part is fully secured but not crushed. That's when you can file, cut, shape, drill, sand, or straighten without the part moving. A vise lets you cold straighten bent metal, crowbars, machetes, tool handles, gate hinges, lawnmower decks. Place the bent section in the jaws, tighten, and apply slow pressure with a pipe or lever. Why it's on the list. When manufacturing slows and imports stall, you're not replacing broken items. You're reshaping them, reinforcing them, and giving them new life. A vise and clamps turn any structure into a functional workshop. Number 3. The PEX Plumbing Repair Kit. The tool that keeps water flowing when the world around you stops maintaining it. Plumbing fails at 2 a.m. in winter, when water pressure spikes or temperatures drop. When trades are overwhelmed and parts are backordered, you fix it yourself. PEX doesn't crack like copper, doesn't corrode like galvanized steel, and doesn't shatter like PVC. A simple cutter and crimp tool lets you rebuild entire sections in minutes. Cut out the damaged section, slide on a PEX coupling, crimp it tight, and pressure test. You've restored water without heat, without solder, without threading pipes, without waiting for a technician who may not come. You can reroute lines around a frozen section, bypass a broken shutoff valve, add a drain line to winter-proof a system, move a water heater, or isolate a leaking bathroom. Creative use. A PEX tool lets you build low-pressure irrigation systems out of scrap tubing, gravity-fed from a rain barrel. You can expand your garden or keep crops alive in drought conditions. Why it's on the list, water is the first system whose failure forces immediate action. With a PEX kit, you don't wait for a plumber or supply chain recovery, you restore flow yourself. Number 2, the sharpening system. The tool that preserves every cutting edge you own when replacements disappear. In normal life, people throw away dull things. But when imports falter and tools double in price, a sharpening system quietly becomes one of the most valuable assets you can own. Everything in a collapse gets harder. Wood splitting, food preparation, gardening, repairs, shelter maintenance. Every task demands cutting edges that actually cut. Start with coarse stone to re-establish the bevel, typically 20 degrees for knives, 25 for axes, 30 for chisels. Move to medium grit to refine it. Finish with fine stone for a razor edge. A sharp tool uses less force, which means fewer accidents, less fatigue, and more efficiency. A dull knife is dangerous. A dull axe glances. A dull chisel tears wood. Creative use. You can sharpen garden tools, hoes, shovels, spades, post-hole diggers. A sharpened shovel moves through soil like loam instead of clay. A sharpened hoe lets you weed twice as fast while conserving calories. Why it's on the list. Cutting edges are the backbone of self-sufficiency. They prepare food, split firewood, open containers, fabricate parts, process animals, harvest crops, and maintain shelter. When buying replacements is no longer guaranteed, sharpening is the difference between a household that functions and one that grinds to a halt. Number 1, the heavy-duty sewing awl plus upholstery repair kit. The tool that rebuilds the fabric of your life, literally, when the world stops replacing anything you wear, carry, lift, haul, or shelter under. People imagine empty shelves and broken grids. They rarely think about the slow failures, the torn backpack strap that can't be replaced, the ripped jacket that leaks heat, the broken tool pouch that spills gear, the shredded tarp that used to keep your woodpile dry. A heavy-duty sewing awl drives waxed thread through leather, canvas, nylon webbing, upholstery fabric, tarps, boots, gear belts, tool bags. Materials too tough for regular needles and far too important to lose. Cut your thread long, wax it heavy, and lock your stitches every 3 or 4 passes with a double loop. This creates a seam strong enough to lift 200 pounds, strong enough to repair a pack strap carrying your filtration system, strong enough to rebuild a tool holster. In any long emergency, textiles fail faster than metal. Your gardening tote handle wears through. Winter gloves rip at the seams. Your tent pole punctures its sleeve. Your boots split at the vamp. A sewing awl repairs all of it, in minutes. No factory, no store, no shipping container. Once you know how to stitch load-bearing seams, you can fabricate entirely new items from scrap. Slings, harnesses, straps, scabbards, holsters, gear rolls, belt loops, animal harnesses, tool sheaths. Creative use. Reinforce weakened fabric in advance. Stitch leather patches onto gloves before holes appear. Reinforce backpack straps before they tear. Add webbing to tarp corners so they survive wind loads. Why it's on the list? Fabric is everywhere in your life, and in system collapse, every piece becomes irreplaceable. This tool keeps your clothing warm, your shelter intact, your gear secure, and your equipment functional. It doesn't just repair objects, it maintains the comfort, mobility, and protection that make survival possible. That's the list. 10 tools that don't look dramatic, don't get talked about on prepper forums, and don't feel urgent until the moment everything else stops working, and these are the only things keeping your systems alive. You can stockpile food and store water, but none of it matters if you can't maintain the things that make your life function. When imports slow, when parts run out, when appliances fail and the hardware aisle looks picked clean, the people who stay comfortable won't be the ones with the biggest stash. They'll be the ones who can repair, rebuild, and extend the life of everything they rely on. So which tool surprised you most? Which one made you think, yeah, I'm grabbing that before everyone else figures it out? Drop a comment and tell me which tool you already have and which ones you're adding first. If this helped you rethink what preparedness actually looks like, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.